been a while. Happy New Year's to you. If you're into that whole Gregorian trip, that is, this random January 1st thing. Named after Janus, right? So the god that looks forward and back, which is kind of an old, fun image that perhaps these days we simulate more with like father time and then the child of the new year, right? um and it's funny like how many just like group messages I've got in the last week of all the things we can do to renew ourselves now that it's a new year and all that. And it's like, who says it's a new year? And the answer, of course, is most people. And why? Because somehow most of us, without being given a option, subscribe to this whole Gregorian calendar situation, where, of course, December 31 days is followed by 31 in January. But then we go to February, which is 28 or sometimes 29, as it will be in 2024. It's a leap year. Why? Because 2024 is divisible by 4. And every year that's divisible by 4, we add an extra day in February to keep the 365 and a quarter day pace of the tropical year. An issue is that the year is slightly less than that, 365.2422. And this is what demanded a calendar reform. And when the Julian calendar was then replaced by the Gregorian calendar, which I don't necessarily want to trip on today, but I'll say this, whether you're looking at 365 or 366 days in a year, which is what's going to be on your calendar, okay? Because it's really hard to do a quarter day. Although, it's not. We could do organic leap year in a very interesting way, which would be to begin days at sunrise for 1 year, 365 of those. And then we begin the next year at midday when the sun is on high and the shadow is shortest, right? And 365 of those midday days. And then begin the next year at sunset. And then begin the next year at midnight. And then begin the next year at sunrise. You see like that? And this way you would do an organic quarter of the day. Right? It would be no math necessary. Well, there would be. You'd have to count the 365. Anyway, I think that tale for another time. Wow, running in a mask. Okay. Really? We're gonna party like it's 2020. Fauci, sorry. So, 365 is an interesting number because it has very few factors. 365 is divisible only by 1, 365, 5, and 73. Some people actually have recently proposed like a 5 seasonal year where each of the seasons is 73 days. But I have an issue with that because it just doesn't align to nature. Like it doesn't align, like we would like to do our months, with lunar phases. But then we have to deal with leap months to get the silver year of lunar phases to agree with the golden year of seasons. And that's not what I want to talk about today, but I love talking about it. In fact, I will be talking about it at the post-conference workshop. I would love for you to join me there. Late February in Los Angeles at the Conscious Life Expo. Look into it. You can go to GeminiBrett.com/events if you want to link over to their page from mine, where I would get a little bit of an extra back scratch if you did, by the way. But I'd love to see you there, where I'll be talking about realigning with natural time, which is a tricky thing to do because the astronomical cycles don't just give these like easy numbers. It would be so easy if we had a year of 360 days and the month was like lunation, new moon to new moon was 30 days long. And so we had 12 of those, wouldn't it? But that's not how it works. The year is 360 degrees long. So more of that another time. I want to talk now about this idea of why 2024 could be called a moon year. Now, this is completely founded on the idea of beginning your year on January 1st. Were I the day keeper and the calendar creator for our new culture, we would begin either at a solstice or an equinox, which is a global moment. January 1st is not. January 1st happens in, Beijing before it happens in Mumbai. And that happens before it happens in Cairo, which happens before it happens in Madrid, and it happens there before it happens in New York. You know what I'm saying, right? Like, so the old man's like New Year celebration is here on the West Coast. We just watched the ball drop in New York. It's like 9 p.m. Right? Sweet. This year, I just went to kind of a lame hotel party and then watched Despicable Me with the little guy, and that was great. Anyway, we used to party. And why this January 1st at midnight, thing. So anyway, an interesting thing about it is, and I'm sure you've noticed this, is you cycle through start days for your year. Like January 1st, 2024 was a Monday. January 1st, 2023 was a Sunday. January 1st, 2022 was a Saturday. January 1st, 2021 was a Friday. See how that goes? So like, why is this happening? Because 365 is not divisible by 7. 364 is, okay? 7 times 52, 364. And I mean, even that would be more convenient than having a year that's 365 and a bit. But that's what we got, all right? So 7 times 52, so 52 weeks, right? It's the deck of cards, by the way. Right, the deck of the cards is 4 seasons that we call, spring, summer, fall, and winter. But in the deck, it's like the hearts and the diamonds and the clubs and the spades, right? 4 suits, 4 seasons, each with 13 cards or 13 weeks. That's the 52-week solar year. Unfortunately, it's not the solar year. It's 364 days, right? So then you got one more day. So basically, like this year, or let's say last year, 2023, January 1st, we began on a Sunday, right? So 52 Sundays later is 364 days later, but the calendar year had 365 days, right? So you have to go to the next day. You did 52 Sundays or 52 weeks, and now it's Monday. So 2024 begins on a Monday. 2025 will not begin on a Tuesday. Why? Because 2024 is a leap year, right? So you actually leap a day in this weird thing that I'll call like year bearers, all right? So let me just say that the moon is the year bearer for 2024 because it began on a Monday, Moon Day, the day of the moon. 2025's year bearer will be Mercury. Why? Because January 1st, 2025 is a Wednesday, miércoles, Mercury's day. 2026 will begin on Thursday, Jupiter's day. 2027 will begin on Friday, Venus's day. 2028 will begin on Saturday, Saturn's day. 2028 is divisible by 4, and it is therefore a leap year. Asterisk. Anyway, so we will then have a leap day in 2028, and 2028 begins on a Saturday, but therefore because of the leap day, 2029 will not begin on a Sunday. It will begin on a Monday. And then we'll go a year of starting on Monday, a year starting on Tuesday, a year starting on Wednesday, a year starting on Thursday, Leap year, skip to Saturday. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like just the beginning days of the years on the Gregorian calendar doing this January 1st thing. Intriguing, right? So why would I call it year bearer? Well, I'm borrowing from a very different tradition. And I don't think this, by the way, is a traditional term. I think it is a term that was, well, you know what? I really don't know. We would have to ask somebody who has studied the Mesoamerican timekeeping. I've studied a little bit. So in the Mesoamerican, as we call it today, traditions, there are many calendars. So I'll speak about like Maya calendar, like in the Yucatan, the Yucatec Maya, they kept a very sacred count called the Tzolk'in. They keep 260 days, right? And so that 260 is 20 and 13. There are 20 so-called nawals, or people call these day signs. Like I was born on the day of deer, manik in the Yucatec language, or kesh in the Quiche language, right? But I'm a 3 deer. And you could be a 1 deer or a 2 deer or a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, or 13. You could be, like I'm born on 3 deer, the next day is 4 star, right? If I was born on 5 deer, the next day is 6 star. Look into it if you haven't already. Look into the Tzolk'in. Be careful of modern twists of the ancient sacred count is all I would say. I don't want to offend anyone, but I guess I could be more specific. The dream spell calendar is not the Mayan calendar, right? It's a modern kind of take on it, but Jose Arguelles did all sorts of things to it that are not, well, traditional. Maybe you would even say they are appropriate. Who knows? I'm going to leave that aside. All right. Anyway, in 2 of the calendars, maybe the 2 principal ones, or at least the 2 that outsiders like myself are most aware of, are the Tzolk'in, the sacred count of days, 260 days, and the Hab, which is a 365-day count. All right, that's the year calendar, right? The annual calendar. Now, there is some argument about whether the Maya and other cultures in the Mesoamerican tradition were utilizing a leap day or not. There's good arguments either way. The thing I said before about doing like a sunrise year where every day begins at sunrise, and then the next year, 365 days later, just starting at midday, and then having a year where every day begins at midday, and then having a year where every day begins at sunset, and then having a year where every day begins at midnight. Some suggest that this is actually what the Maya were doing. There's reasons, like if you compare the Venus count, the Venus star, to the Hab of 365 days without a leap day, to maybe suggest that's not what was going down. I just say I really love this image of what I call an organic leap day, which you don't have one. You just have a sunrise year, a midday year, a sunset year, a midnight year, and then your next sunrise year. All right? And there's one of the reasons that would support this idea in like Mesoamerican calendrics or Maya calendrics, I'll say, is that when you look at these 2 sacred counts that like all of those cultures were practicing in different ways, 260 days, the sacred count, and then 365 days, the year calendar, is that interestingly, it takes 52 years for them to synchronize. It's just dealing with 365 and 260 and trying to find like, you know, a common denominator, to use, you know, our math terms. And you end up having 52 Habs. 52 times 365 days is equal to 73 Tzolk'in. 73 times 260 is equal to 52 times 365. Get out your calculators, friends, do the math. So some call that the calendar round. When you've gone through 52 years, which equal 73 Tzolk'ins, And at this time, there was what was called, in some of the traditions, what's called a new fire ceremony. Check it out. All right. Anyway, each year of 365 days, each Hab will obviously also start on a specific day within the Zolkin, the count of 260 days. And intriguingly, there's only 4 potential nawals or day signs that can begin the Hab. And I cannot, especially without like slides where I can show you some of like the calendars and maybe the math, like tell you why that is. I lack the language, but it's a really cool thing. Look into it, okay? So like all of us have a day sign. Like I'm born, as I said before, 3 Deer, 3 Manik, 3 Lamat. Some argue actually that because I'm born after sunset, then I'm actually 4 Lamat, 4 star. I'm either 3 Manik, 3 Kesh is a different language. There's other languages for it, but most would suggest that I was born at 3 Deer. Some say because the sun had set before my birth, I'm the next day, which is 4 star. There's lots of debate, lots of argument. There were different approaches culturally. And sadly, like colonialism burned a lot of that shit down, didn't it? Right? And so we've lost the writings that told us how these things worked, and lost connection to a lot of the ancient ones and the elders who kept the days. And even the ones who survived those burning times, like many of them, like aren't really excited to share this esoteric information with the folks who, you know, like stole and burned and all that stuff before, which is certainly understandable, isn't it? Anyway, we all have a day sign, right? But we were also born in a year. So like in Gregorian, I'm October 24th. I could say I'm Scorpio, but I'm also born in 1975. And I can play with that numerologically. I might look at I'm 1975 and then borrow from another tradition, and I'm the year of a rabbit, right? Well, which element, yada, yada, right? All sorts of ways we can get into this fun calendar play. But interestingly, in the Mesoamerican traditions, let me like speak Mayan traditions, right? So like the year of the Hab, the 365 day count, begins only with one of the 4 day signs in the Tzolk'in. And I would tell you which 4 they are. One of them is actually Deer, Manik. But in different traditions and at different times, it seems, in the traditions, the 4 changed. So I don't want to go there. But just understand that like the year begins on a day sign, and I think this is a modern term and I'm not sure, that day sign, like let's say that the Hab of this year, the 365 day count, began on Deer, whether it's 2 Deer or 1 Deer or 13 Deer or whatever, because it will cycle through them over time. If the year began on Deer, then whether you're born on Deer or any of the other 19 signs during the course of the year, you're born into a Deer year, or the Deer sign, Manik, Kesh in different languages, there's other languages for this, would be what's called the year bearer, okay? And so I'm borrowing from that tradition, or at least this languaging of that tradition, in this idea that maybe the moon is the year bearer for 2024. Now look, if we were doing this with solstices or equinoxes, you can't do this stuff anyway, okay? Because while a solstice, for example, is a global moment, and that's why, for me, it's more interesting to begin a year at a solstice or an equinox. Like, solstice happens in the same exact moment everywhere on Earth. However, in some places, it's going to be daytime, in some places, nighttime. Yeah? And different times of the day and all that stuff, too. So we couldn't do, I mean, you could locally, you know, you could say this year started on a Monday, next year starts on whatever, and like then use moon, or if it's Wednesday, Mercury, to be like a year bearer for the year. It wouldn't be as systemic. Does that become completely an evil word? Anyway, it wouldn't work as well as using like a calendar day. like 2024 began on a Monday. Therefore, 2025 will begin on a Tuesday. Oops, no it won't, because 2024 is a leap year. But 2025 begins on Wednesday, 2026 on Thursday, 2027 on Friday, 2028 on Saturday. Then 2028 is a leap year, so 2029 begins not on Sunday, but on Monday. And then 2030 on Tuesday, 2031 on Wednesday, 2032 on Thursday. It's a leap year, so 2033 will begin on a Saturday, skipping Friday. And then we do Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, skip Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, skip Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, skip Saturday. See how that works? So kind of like a pretty cool, intricate pattern happens in here, again, because 52 weeks of 7 days is 364 days, so short of the 365 in a regular year or the 366 in a leap year. And it will do that 4, skip 1, 4 in a row, skip 1, 4 in a row for a long time till you get to centuries. This is the asterisk I spoke of before, if y'all were listening, that we have a leap year every year of the calendar that's divisible by 4, unless it's also divisible by 100, but not divisible by 400. And things are about to get crazy.
What?
Hi, I'm talking to the people. Say hello.
Hello.
Hello, the people. Koa. So last thing I have time to say, because I'm about to give my attention to this amazing being, is this. Like, consider the idea that if you want to play with January 1st as your new year, that perhaps the day of the week on January 1st, like for instance, this year of 2024 in the Gregorian count, began on a Monday, would be then the moon, like, represents this year. So everybody nurture the children and love them. That was the sound of love. I don't think you're supposed to put your stomach on that part of a seat.
Me neither.
How about a seatbelt? Because we will drive. I'm going to turn this off, all right? And then next year begins on Wednesday, Miraculous, Mercury's Day, and so is next year a Mercury year. You know, like, that's a fun thing to play with. Check it out. Go back and see in the year of your birth, which I have not yet, which planet's day aligned on January 1st. See if that works for you. Peace, y'all.